Hello and welcome to another episode of Great Britons. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining us, and I hope that you're going to enjoy today's content. If you do, then please hit the like button. It does make a big difference to us here on the channel and improves the algorithms and all the rest of it, and will allow us to grow the channel and also to put out some more fine stories about these wonderful Great Britons. So thank you for that. Sit back and enjoy. Today we're going to be talking about a very famous Scottish inventor by the name of James Watt. Famous for lots of different things, but today I want to sort of concentrate on a couple of things in particular, really, which were the work he did with steam engines and with central heating. So let's get into this, shall we? But before we do, whenever we talk about central heating, I don't think we can ever forget the contribution made by the Romans. And for that, in terms of when they actually invented some of this stuff, we need to go way back to biblical times. And, the Monty Python crowd did it very well when they said, what did the Romans ever do for us? If ever you need to see a great example of underfloor central heating, then the finest example I can point you to would be to visit the wonderful city of Bath, the UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Roman baths there are incredible, and some of the side rooms you'll notice are made, well, the whole building's obviously made of stone, but what the Romans did very, very cleverly was that they raised the floor up by, 4 or 5 feet, about sort of just over a meter. And they lit large fires underneath the lounges and other public rooms. And of course, these large fires warmed the stone, and lo and behold, you got beautiful underfloor heating. Those were built during biblical times, so absolutely incredible. And we couldn't have talked about central heating and not mentioned the contribution by the Romans. So now moving on to Scottish inventor James Watt, 18th century guy. Particularly famous for working on very large steam engines and making all sorts of changes and improvements to them, which really, really did transform the UK in terms of what was going on during the Industrial Revolution. Sadly, he struggled with poor health. I mean, he got things like bronchitis and rheumatism. He was sort of messing around with different chemicals at the time as well in some of his testing. And there is a popular thought that maybe some of that didn't do his health much good. But that's by the by. I mean, despite that, he lived to a ripe old age and, kind of survived quite well, really, considering he was generally of poor health. His son actually helped to create the largest factory in the world, would you believe, making steam engines. And this was along with another famous inventor, a guy called Matthew Boulton, which many Birmingham people know. And collectively, they were known throughout the world for making steam engines. And they actually set up a factory in the Smethwick area of Birmingham. Which, as I said, at the time was the largest factory in the world, and they were renowned throughout the world for being steam engine manufacturers. James Watt had got this idea that you could sort of take that idea of an industrial steam engine and sort of possibly make it work in a domestic environment. So what he did was a couple of homes and a couple of office installations were kitted out with these steam engines, and he ran sort of piping. I guess it was kind of just under the floor or slightly buried into the wall or whatever. But he ran piping around the rooms, and this was very successful. I mean, it worked to treat as a central heating system. It worked incredibly well. I guess the only downside to it was that James Watt's background being industrial, these machines were much bigger than you would want in someone's home. So, the homes in the UK rather, were not large enough to accept these fairly big steam engines. So although the theory worked to treat, from a practical standpoint, I think there was some work still needed to be done. But there's no doubt about it, if you're talking about who invented it, in my mind, it's absolutely clear that James Watt gets the accolade for that. He went on to develop large heating systems, because some of the very large factories and other sort of office accommodation, those buildings were pretty cold, so that they too needed heating. And of course, the steam engines he'd got were much more suited to that. So he went on to develop a whole range of heating systems for factories, etc. And like I said, very, very successfully done. Going back to domestic central heating, like I said, yes, James Watt had certainly proved the theory that this is the way it could work, notwithstanding, of course, the fact that the boilers were too large, and you'd need something very much smaller. And believe it or not, it took about another 100 years for other engineers to sort of pick this issue up and kind of run with it and say, okay, what do we need to do? Would hot water be better than steam? How small could we make the boiler? Could you have something that would fit in a cupboard or whatever? So there were a few things to consider, a few things to sort out and develop. And I guess other priorities took over. So it was actually a full 100 years before what we now know today as a domestic central heating system became widely available. James Watt passed away in 1819 at the age of 83. So, like I said, for a guy that's maybe not as well as he could have been. He lived a very full life. He actually passed away in his home at Heathfield Hall in Birmingham, where he'd been living and, like I said, working alongside Matthew Boulton and making a terrific name for themselves all over the world with their steam engines. And I guess his lasting legacy is the fact that he's given his name to the way we measure electricity and other power. Obviously, we measure them in watts. So he's left his name to industry in the form of being recognised in that way. So yeah, his contribution to the Industrial Revolution is almost without equal, and he's very, very deserving of being included in our series on Great Britons. So I do hope you've enjoyed today's content. If you have, then please do press the like button. As I said, it's absolutely free. Makes a big difference to us here and helps us to grow the channel and push out more content. Thank you very much for your time. Stay well, and I'll catch up with you soon. Bye for now.